What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Adam of Orm. Great to be able to talk with you, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. The newest album is Intet, Altet. Was this just a follow up to your previous album, or IR, or was Intent Altet, if I pronounce that correctly, was this like a new beginning for Orm in a way?
So yeah, my previous album, Ia, um, it was kind of a new style for us, and that started writing these very long songs. And so that when we wanted to create our next album, we wanted to do the same, but kind of go even further. So for Intet Altet, we just went with a double album instead. So it's double the length. The songs are still kind of the same length because they have to fit on a vinyl disc or a side of a vinyl.
Hmm.
So I think we kind of took. I mean, I think it's not a new beginning for us. It's kind of a further elaboration of the stuff that we did on here.
And when it is a double album, like, do you almost consider it like a fundamentally secular aspect of your band? Like, is this at all, did you go into this with a similar creative energy that you did with your self-titled or Air? Or what, being that this was a double album, you kind of had to approach the making of this in a very different manner?
I think we did it much in the same way as the other albums, but we spent even more time, getting all the pieces together, and we there was a lot more stuff to kind of oversee this time. So the songs are very long, and the compositions have to still be tight, and so we recorded ourselves a lot. We have a small studio, so we recorded lots of demos and listened to them. We bought a whiteboard so we could write the structures and stuff and notes. And yeah, so it was kind of a big puzzle to piece together for sure.
Hmm. When you listen to the sound of this of when you listen to the sound of this amazing double adventure, when you compare the Serpent Mother demo all the way to now, there was such an evolution. Was this the sound that you always envisioned Orm taking in the future, or did this sound just kind of develop naturally over time?
I think it developed naturally over time. So I mean, so Serpent Mother, our first single, was kind of just us trying to do something new for ourselves, and exploring that kind of music. So yeah, it was just kind of pretty raw, and I think it's a great single, but it's of course quite different from where we've ended up. So it's been quite a journey. It wasn't planned. It wasn't when we started back in 2015. We didn't have any ambitions um, pointing towards what we're ended up now.
Hmm. There was never really like a preconceived vision. It was a very organic process, you would say.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Would you find that whether it would be this brand new album or anything that Orm has approached, has a concept or an idea maybe influenced the sound or the direction that you would take, or do you not, or do you and the band not think of any conceptual ideas until after there's already music present?
No, no, we definitely. I mean, it happens concurrently, I would say. So we usually do have a few riffs lying around that we start off with, but we also, I mean, we are very inspired by lots of other stuff happening in our lives. Like a year was about this suicide of a family member of Simon's, um, and the whole like lyrical theme is about that, basically about grief and kind of dealing with it and narrating it in a very kind of a local frame of the island where Simon and Tice are from, home. So we had this big lyrical concept, and then the idea that we had wanted to write these long songs. So that influenced kind of the kind of songwriting that we set out to do, right? And it's kind of the same on the Intet. We also quite early came up with the concept of these 4 life stages that we wanted to explore. So from the get-go, we kind of wrote music trying to hit those themes, like, to make it make sense.
Does it always come from a personal place, or always come internally, or is there a lot of observation and a lot of external sources of inspiration as well?
I mean, also that, of course, like, I think all of us, we kind of, as humans, also, it's hard to, when we receive, inputs in the form of music or even movies or books or whatever, kind of, sets off something in your head, and you take that also to the rehearsal space and get some cool ideas, like some of the visualizers that we made for the tracks, or the excerpts of the tracks were very inspired by a documentary that Simon had seen about something completely different, about substance abuse, but where they had these kind of close-ups of these statues with the light moving across, kind of stole that idea there, right? And lots of other things, like, yeah, influence us, I think.
Is it better this is it better if everybody in the band is on the same page or feeling the same way when writing music together, or could everybody in the band having different ideas or different experiences or just different emotions maybe actually help enhance the songwriting process?
I think a little bit of both, right? So, I mean, if everyone's kind of pulling in different directions, then we don't get anywhere, and that happens sometimes. So we try to kind of sync up in terms, like, so we keep in touch also when we're not rehearsing. Like, if we hear something new that's cool that we want to share with the other guys, we kind of want to keep on the same page and not just drift apart musically. But also, I mean, it's always great to have different kinds of inputs, right? So, and people are also feeling differently. Like, so this album, we had lots. I mean, so Simon and I, we had kids, and Thijs, he lost his mother, and there was a bunch of stuff happening in our personal lives that was completely in very different places personally, for sure.
Yeah. Um,
Um, yeah.
Being that you've all made music together, not even just for Orm, but with your previous project, By the Patient, like, would you say that you've made enough music together? Because By the Patient has also had a fairly prolific catalog. You made 3 albums with each other. So at this point, do you guys know? You guys at this point really know what's in your creative hearts and your creative minds, where it's very easy to inspire each other, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, we've been playing together for a long time, so we're kind of, yeah, we do have, I think, lots of shared experiences and kind of a very common ground to start off. I mean, we know each other. We spend some in periods more time with each other than with our families, right? So,
And I wanted to talk a little bit about the By the Patient project as well, because with the formation of Orm, were you guys, was there at all maybe a similar creative mindset, being that it was, you 3 guys forming this project together, or was the creative process very, very different? And you would say,
I mean, yeah. So when By the Patient stopped, we were 5 in the band. So the 3 of us and Tools, who also was in Orm and left recently, and then the singer Tan. And Tan left, and shortly after we kind of disbanded By the Patient and wanted to do something new, so we formed Orm. And lots of the like creative process was still the same, but of course, with Tan not being there contributing, he always basically wrote the lyrics, and we wrote all the other stuff. So he didn't write the lyrics anymore. So now we kind of had to come up with that. And yeah, we hadn't tried that. So it was both old and new, I'd say. I mean, but largely the same, except that the goal was very different. Like, so By the Patient, we just wanted kind of to have fun. It was like melodic death metal that was super cool and very fun to play. And we were out Uh, yeah, it's kind of more less serious, subconscious music in a way. So, but with Orm, we kind of wanted to do something more serious, like not fool around.
Yeah. Well, I thought that like the big difference between By the Patient with like the final album being Gehenna, which I don't know if this was an intention, but Gehenna is essentially the Jewish hell, the Jewish idea of hell.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, and with an album such as Serpents or Premonitions, it almost is it fair to say that By the Patient was also maybe a little less personal?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely for the rest of it. I mean, so for Tan, he wrote some also somewhat personal lyrics, but it was also political. Uh, but for the rest of us, we weren't at all. I mean, we didn't write a single lyric at all. We just wrote the music.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it was more about writing just very cool riffs and playing some cool parts. Um, and I think we did very well. I loved playing there as well.
Definitely, definitely.
But we also, I mean, so lots of the music videos we made back then was just very silly, and it was great fun.
Yeah.
But with Orm, we kind of wanted to do something more serious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine like there is a bit of contrast when you listen to By the Patient and when you listen to Orm. You wonder if it's the same people, not even just because of a different sound, but a different personality and just a different method of expression.
Yeah.
When it comes going back to Orm, I wanted to talk a little bit more on a technical aspect, being the drummer of Orm. Do you feel like a lot? I've had this discussion with many drummers before. A lot of people say that because drums don't have melody in it, that there's no emotion behind it. But when I listen to the rhythmic aspects of Orm, I sense a lot of emotion behind it. So prove those people wrong. What emotional aspects are you channeling in to your kit when you're either playing live or tracking?
I mean, so of course I mean, it's all about emotion, really. And of course, there's also the execution of it, but the music that we write in with Orm is about the emotion, really, right? So also it's the same for the drums. Uh, there's lots of different kind of emotions that I'm kind of channeling when writing and recording these parts, right? So of course, there's lots of blast beats and these kind of frenetic, frantic drumming going on, and that really just needs to kind of push forward all the time. So I'm really trying to get that feeling across, across like the first song. I'm just up on the beats all the time, basically just pushing it along, never dragging behind at all. Just always like some kind of ocean wave, just relentlessly pushing on. That's kind of what I'm imagining there. And just you need to have so much power, like can just it's not the drums aren't that fast really. If you just want to tap it out, like sit with your fingers and play along, you can do that easily. But you need to have that power, that energy behind it.
100%. Do you find it do you prefer to have music present already before you start laying down your rhythm, or have you ever had a whole drum pattern written down that the band could write according to?
And maybe sometimes, but most of the time I write up against a riff. That's definitely the common situation. Yeah. But I often spend a lot of time with Simon and Taj. They write a riff, and we spend lots of time kind of playing around with it rhythmically, seeing how we can maybe change it up, shift it somehow, or make it more interesting. And I think if you listen closely, there's lots of those kind of details going on in our music that you might not notice when you just listen to it. But yeah, that's actually quite a bit of intricacy.
And being that I don't know how present it has been, but I being that you don't currently have a bass player now, or I'm not sure if you currently do at the moment. You said that uh Trollus is currently in the band, or did he leave? Couldn't remember.
He left in February. Yeah,
Okay.
February,
So
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if without a bass player, if there's more pressure on you to add to the rhythm, or with I don't know if being that Mouthy came in, there's a lot less pressure on you now, right?
So, I mean, we're not performing, without a bass player. So Melton is there,
Okay.
and he's doing great, right? So, no, otherwise it could be cool as well, but we kind of when we wrote the into the Alto Trolls, he wasn't very active during most of the writing there.
Okay.
So we kind of always wrote, and Tice, he recorded all the bass. We, yeah, we wrote all the bass there as well. So
Do you feel though, by bringing in a new bass player, especially since he's played with Wolfaz and as well as Slow Joint and other bands, has that maybe allowed to bring in some new elements into Orm as well, like maybe in the live presence?
it's too early to say really, because right now we're not writing any music or anything. We're just out playing, uh, yeah, just playing the new album. So he's not really part of the creative process, and that's not the plan either right now. So we're just hiring him in,
Okay.
and the plan is to stay as a trio, just the three of us writing.
Okay. And when it comes to these ideas that you come up with, and all these different visions that you have, is it better to write when you're in the company of your bandmates, or is it better? Isolation is such a great feel for creativity. Is it maybe better if you write alone when you're more in your element and there's nothing between you and your instrument?
I mean, so I don't write any of the riffs like initially because I mostly play the drums and my guitar skills are pretty poor. Um, but I know that the way that we work is that Simon he writes most of the riffs and he writes many of them at home and brings them to the rehearsal space. And usually we spend a lot of time there polishing them off or changing them slightly, subtly, and lots of new riffs emerge while we are there. So it's kind of also I think it depends like what kind of riffs are you writing. So for most of this quiet acoustic stuff, he wrote those at home, as far as I remember, where you have time to he has time to do lots of iterations and lots of small finicky things. But then lots of the more energetic and rhythmical stuff just came up with in rehearsal space.
And the final question I wanted to ask is there a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do in your songwriting, or do you consider them two completely separate arts altogether?
Well, that's a hard question. Yes and no. I mean, so I try not to channel anger and desperation into my personal life as far as I can. But I mean, there's so much of the stuff that when you're in a band and writing music, you learn lots of stuff that you can use in your life, I think. And lots of I mean, and also just get rid of some. I mean, so that's why we write it. And the lyrics I think it's great. I write a lot of the lyrics together with the guys, and that's kind of therapeutic to write some of those things down, even if you're not directly writing some kind of feeling, but you're still kind of translating emotions into words in some sense. And that's definitely something I didn't do before, which I can recommend, because it's just kind of cathartic.
Definitely.
Uh, no matter if you write poetry or if you write a book or whatever, getting thoughts on paper, even if they're not like you could write "I am angry," but that's not as fun. Like translating that stuff creatively.
Yeah.
Is,
Yeah, if you don't express the anger out correctly, you end up with saint anger, and that's not a good. That's not a good. I had to say that at least once.
All right.
Yeah. Um, but before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for a really great discussion. And is there just anything else with Orm that you would like to promote with the release of this double album? And let me see if I can pronounce it better for this time. It's pronounced Intet Altet, right? That's how you say it, or is the T at the end silent?
Yeah, it's kind of a soft T at the end. It's typical. Intel, Altel.
Intel Alta. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
all right, cool. So with the new album Intel Alta out now, is there just some anything else with Orm that you would like to promote? With this, is there a chance maybe you could bring Orm to the U.S.?
I mean, we'd love to, but right now, there aren't any plans right now. Still kind of working up towards that. But we're coming to Norway next weekend. So if any Norwegian listeners out there of yours, check us out. And if anyone from the US are listening, which they probably are, still just check us out on Spotify, Bandcamp, whatever. Give it some time and concentration. I think it's a great opportunity actually to sit down for an hour and a half and listen to music. It's rare that you kind of give yourself that chance.
Yeah, that's what I that was my analysis of Intel Alta is that like it's not an album that I recommend listening to on the go, like on a commute or something like that. It's one of those albums you need to sit down and get lost into, which I think
Yeah,
is great. To me, like when you can listen to an album in a very relaxed manner, like sitting down and watching a movie, that's one of the greatest sonic experiences you could have. So you succeeded with that. So
exactly. Yeah, thanks. That's definitely the way that I'd recommend listening to it. Yeah,
yeah, it reminded me a lot of like kind of not so similar in sound, but the way that Bellwitch put out Mirror Reaper, like it kind
yeah,
of had that same sort of vibe behind it.
yeah. Definitely. I love Bill Witch,
Oh my
and
god, and Mirror
I mean,
Reaper is just an amazing
amazing,
that
amazing.
one of the best Black Doom, whatever the hell you call it, albums ever. But thank you so
Definitely.
much, everybody. We are here with Orm Intel Alto. Be sure to check it out. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.